Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Now, it's not often that planting plans exceed one's expectations, but it has done here, for me anyway, in the Lime Walk. It's always been white in the past, but I wanted to introduce yellow into it. So we've added Nicholas Hayek, which is an off-white ivory colour, to the white Triumphator tulips, and also lined it with a primrose yellow wallflower. And the whole thing is very simple, quite muted, but really sings in early spring. I'm very, very pleased with it. I shall be spending most of tonight's programme in the pond, but I shan't be alone, because Rachel is coming to join me at Longmeadow to help me plant it up with marginal plants. Carol celebrates euphorbias and meets an allotment holder in Yorkshire that just can't seem to get enough of them.
Wherever you are you constantly thinking about euphorbias?
I'm a euphorbia freak. I can't, you know, it's euphoric about euphorbias, just doesn't say it.
Is that a law?
And Joe visits the garden of a fellow designer, which, although it's right in the centre of London, feels as though it could be in the middle of the country.
Oh. See, I wasn't expecting this at all.
This is where we've got to.
I'm very, very impressed, I must say. Stone's looking great.
It's sort of beginning to blend in.
But already, you know, the stonework is beautiful. I love the way you've done it. It's irregular, it looks natural.
Now, what I really need now is to get plants. I've got a load of plants. They will need potting up, ready for putting in the water. So if I tog up, ready to go in the water, if you could pot up, between us we'll do it.
Well, he's got a good selection of plants here. Very nice. And we've got gravel, we've got these aquatic planting baskets, obviously with holes in. And here we've got these fabric planters as well. So I think if we're going to start with something that goes in a bit deeper, like the iris here, then we're going to need a fairly deep basket. Yep, that looks about right. So I'm just going to put a layer of gravel here in the bottom. And the thinking used to be, and certainly I was taught, that when you were planting marginals into these sort of baskets, that you would use an aquatic loam, which had very low nutrient levels, but nevertheless, actually, some of that still does seep through into the water and you get that sort of algal bloom that isn't very desirable. So that goes in there, and the new thinking, and this is backed up by the charity Pond Conservation, is that you simply use the gravel or the grit, and that just goes around it. The other thing, of course, is that this is much heavier than the loam, so it really acts as good ballast. It makes sure that once that basket's in, it's not going to move around. Great. So that's ready to go in. It's such a lovely plant as well. It's our native iris, flag iris, Iris pseudochorus. Bright yellow. It's a bit of a thug though, so it's very invasive. So putting them in a basket like this is also a good idea for that reason.
Right, how's that for fancy pants?
Wow, I wish I could whistle. I would if I could. First one.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Perfect. Now, a marginal plant is one that is adapted to growing in shallow water, which means that it can spend its life underwater all the time, and it can be just out of the water some of the time. But fundamentally, its roots are in water, and the actual plant grows up out of it. And an iris is a perfect example. And by having marginals on ledges round the outside, I'm softening it. And you get this flow, this direct link that's unbroken from the water through to the border. A pond will bring in a rich diversity of wildlife to any garden. And marginal plants are the key for this to thrive and flourish. Now this is Caltha. Beautiful, beautiful marginal plant. And I'm going to put this hopefully in a shallow area, just there. One of the first plants to flower of the marginal plants, a native. And that really has vibrant colour. So we're starting to build up ideas about colour as well as shape and form. Whoops, there we go. To stock a pool, particularly quite a big one like this, you need a certain amount of plants to make it look like anything at all. And there are not many of these plants can you grow from seed. So you need to buy your initial stock, but they last. And once you've got the basis, it starts to look good, and then you can divide them later and develop more plants, and then in time it can develop. Right. Thanks very much. Now I know this as Scirpus, although it has apparently changed its name, as so many plants seem to do. But whatever you call it, it has the same effect. These lovely porcupine banded stripes, and they give good verticals because it's all a bit horizontal and flat at the moment. So if we get this in here, and I'll put some more with it, now the effect I want are these spikes coming out the water. And that's all part of the process of merging and blending the flatness of the water with the uprights of all the plants that will grow up on the outside of it. Now, how are you doing over there?
Good. I'm just planting up some of our native water mint. It's absolutely so fragrant. As you plant it, you can just smell the leaves. It's really strong, and actually you can eat them in the same way as normal mint. And like garden mint, it's actually very strong growing. It sends out these rather creeping runners, and it's very invasive, so another good reason to have it in the basket. Very attractive to all sorts of insects and bees. So a thing of beauty, well worth having.
Very smart. Maybe I could put this down on this end.
Yes, because you've got it starting to look really nice there.
Now, while Rachel and I are paddling around in the pond, Carol has got her feet firmly on dry land. And she's found glorious euphorbia growing in the wild, and also an amazing collection in a very unlikely situation.
Plants that can look after themselves are a huge boon for busy gardeners, and there are euphorbias that will thrive in just about every position. In woodlands all over the south of England are hundreds of colonies of this native stalwart. Euphorbiaceae is one of the biggest genus in the world, but of it, only about 140 species can be grown under our garden conditions. We've got our own wild forms of it, of course. This beautiful Euphorbia amygdaloides, the wood spurge. You've probably seen it as you've been whizzing by. It lines road verges and tumbles up and down the woods. It's a magnificent plant. First of all, in the spring, these stems emerge with these whorls of symmetrical leaves right the way up, and gradually the flower stem is thrust from them. It's like a crozier. It leans its head, and then gradually it stands up straight, and these big, vivid bracts come out. They're there to announce its presence, not to us, but to the insects that it needs to pollinate it. But the flowers themselves are contained deep within. They're tiny, minute. What a glorious sight it is. Euphorbia's cultivated cousins are to be found in gardens all over the country. But where better to savour the delights of euphorbias than by visiting a national collection? And this one has such an unlikely home, on an allotment just outside Sheffield. Here you'll find 134 different species and cultivars that have been collected and lovingly nurtured by retired teacher Don Whitten. It's beautiful, Don, it really is lovely. But what were the first euphorbias you ever grew?
Well, they're here, Carol. The first two I got, both freebies, being a Yorkshireman, out for now, I'm in for it.
Yeah.
Euphorbia robii, with its deep evergreen foliage, and Cypricius, the dainty little one that takes over.
Thug.
They're both thugs. I say it wasn't love at first sight, obviously, but when I realised that the two different foliages were part of the same genus, I was fascinated.
You got hooked?
I got hooked,
Yeah.
and as I say, I started tracking them down all over Britain, really.
And wherever you are you constantly thinking about euphorbia?
I'm a euphorbia freak. I can't, you know, it's euphoric about euphorbias, just doesn't say it. There's a euphorbia for every part of the garden, whether it's sunny rockery, scree, you know, evergreen, because half the collection are evergreen, the other half are deciduous, die down for the winter. Out of the 130 I've got.
You've a beautiful Euphorbia myrsinites over there, and that's one that, it's a hillside scourge,
Yes, I've seen it, I've tracked them down, and I've, you know, my Euphorbia passion has taken me all over Europe to see them in the wild. I've seen them growing out of cracks in rocks and all sorts of things, and when they grow in my soil, they think they're having their birthday. You know, they're there.
As euphorbias can be quite promiscuous, Don takes cuttings to maintain the integrity of this national collection. Because of the toxic nature of the sap, it's a good idea to wear gloves. Don dips the cuttings in a hormone rooting powder to encourage them to develop roots. And one of his top tips is always to leave the cuttings uncovered. If you had to recommend, say 3. Oh, it's horrible,
Carol,
that, isn't it?
that's a devil
it's like
of a
saying,
job.
what's your favourite plant?
Yeah.
It's an awful question.
It's got to be. I mean, the polychromas is still my favourite species.
Yeah.
Midas is
Green
my
and
favourite one.
yellow. This
Polychroma
one
Midas.
here.
It's got the Midas touch.
It's beautiful.
It's going to continue growing for another month and just swamp itself in those acid bracts.
If that's your best of the best, what else do you like?
If I had to list the next one, it would be another deciduous form, one from the Himalayas that will be flowering at the end of June and July over there. It's got fabulous foliage, as you can see.
Ooh.
You want to know its name, don't you?
Yeah.
It's Euphorbia Don AI. And I'm afraid, just like this Don isn't, it's strong and handsome and upright and well behaved.
And upright?
Yes.
Is it well behaved?
Oh, it is. It's a nice
Always.
clumper. Nice
Right.
clumper. You won't get seedlings. It certainly doesn't run.
And what about some of the ones that are like our native one? What about forms of amygdaloides?
Well, I've got the red leaf version over there. Looks absolutely fabulous at the minute. I do have one or two like Cypricius that, you know, we let loose.
Well, you don't have any choice with that, do you? Because
No,
it goes exactly where it wants to.
It's a mischievous little rascal, I call it. You name a garden situation, and I can tell you a euphorbia that will slot in there. Dry shade, full sun, swamp spurge.
Do you know what? I think you could probably tell me several.
Yep. How did you guess, Carol?
Don's divine allotment demonstrates the diversity and usefulness of this broad-ranging species. There's everything from our native wood spurge that loves the shade through to great towering Mediterranean beauties and exotic species from the Himalayas. And it's not as though this was the end of it. At the moment you can see bare soil here, but you give it a couple of months and this whole thing will have exploded into this bounty of growth. And what's more, it will go on looking wonderful. Euphorbias providing their beauty right the way through till the end of the autumn.
Now, I confess that I have a connection to Euphorbia donii too, because it was named by a forebear of mine, a botanist called David Don from Forfar in Scotland. But it's not my favourite Euphorbia at the moment. This must go to this one here, Euphorbia amygdaloides purpurea, which in this position in the jewel garden is just doing its stuff fantastically. Best plant in the garden at the moment, I think. Now, the jewel garden is swelling, but one of the things that I am slightly concerned about for June is the absence of poppies. Now, if you remember last year, we had masses of poppies in here, but we mulched thickly this February. There's a really good layer of mushroom compost. And one of the things that mulch does, as well as suppress weeds, is suppress seedlings that you want. There are some popping up, but what I'm going to do is sow some seed on top of the mulch. And those should germinate and give us a display slightly later than otherwise, but it should still work. And I've kept poppy seeds from last year. I selected the flower heads that I thought were particularly attractive and tied a ribbon round them. And you can see there are hundreds, if not thousands, of seeds from one seed pod. the poppies will do their thing. Nothing else will have to do with that at all. But there are other plants that will make the garden filled with flower later in the summer that need a little bit of planning and sorting out. And I grow lilies in pots as well as the borders. And last year I planted up these pots and they looked fantastic, but they didn't flower for months after planting. So this year I thought I'd try a different tactic and plant my lilies in plastic pots and then plunge them. And of course, it doesn't have to be lilies. Anything you're growing that is going to go into a container or a border that will flower later in the year but needs growing on can be grown in this way. And not only do I put them into plastic pots, but also plastic mesh pots, exactly the same ones as we're using for the marginal plants in the pond. I've lined it with newspaper, and as the bulb puts out roots, these roots will work their way through, and they can grow through, just the small feeding roots. So crocks in the bottom, so you've got good drainage. And lilies are woodland plants. It's a good idea when you're potting something up to replicate the growing conditions that they get in the wild if you can, and that's simple enough. I've just added leaf mould to normal potting compost. And if you haven't got leaf mould, a bark-based compost or a bit of vermiculite, perlite, chippings, anything that loosens it and opens it out. And then that will sit in there, and then cover it over with more compost. And there you are, a beautiful terracotta pot, beautiful lilies, and it could be any other summer flowering bulb, looking great together. And when the lilies are finished, which will be around about the end of July, I just lift the inner pot out, and then I can replant the terracotta pot. So I'm getting maximum value from both the container and the flower. Now, Joe's been giving us his design masterclass over the last few weeks, and now he's going to concentrate on mastering his own design for his Chelsea show garden. So we shan't be seeing him till after Chelsea. But last week, he went along to see the garden of a fellow designer in the heart of London.
Charles Rutherford is an architect and the newly elected chairman of the Society of Garden Designers. So you might think his own garden would have a precise, carefully constructed designer look. But that's not the case. What he's created is a plant-filled oasis that's a real contrast to the city. Oh, I've come on a good day, haven't I? Look at the light.
Isn't it perfect? With this, what I was really trying to create was an immediate impact of a break between house and city and garden. And so this is really a small evocation of a woodland garden.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. The laburnum holding the whole area together in a way, giving a canopy over the top. A great sculptural form.
It's a beautiful form, isn't it?
I love the colours as well. I mean, the tulips and the wallflowers, and then forsythia. Sorry, it's not one of my favourite plants, especially when it's backlit like that.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is absolutely gorgeous. And then this quite a strong boundary as well. It's
a very strong division, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I wanted to make these very different gardens.
Is that a lawn running through there?
It is unexpectedly a lawn.
Well, in a small space, a lawn is quite impractical.
Any introduction of a hard surface would emphasise the fact that it is actually quite a small space, whereas in a sense here, there is a sort of sense of being able to dream.
It's not just in small spaces that Charles resists the use of hard landscaping. In the larger section of his garden, the only hint of his architectural background was his domed greenhouse. There's barely a brick or paving stone to be seen. Oh. See, I wasn't expecting this at all. There's very little hard landscaping, a huge proportion of plants.
The paving that's here is absolutely to the minimum.
But the majority of it is planting. I mean,
it is.
Tulips at the moment with step-over apples and tree peonies and just lots of colour, and it must just keep going, and from now on in...
It is. It's solid colour really right through to the autumn.
Yeah.
And it's not solid colour everywhere, of course. After the tulips, the tree peonies come out, then the herbaceous peonies, then the delphiniums, the Echium pininana.
Of course. So it's a really good succession of plants that you've got in this space.
Not every area is in flower all the time.
To make impact everywhere is, well, it's impossible.
And I think in a way it might be disappointing in a sense, because if everything had a full year-round impact, you perhaps wouldn't discover parts of the garden.
Charles's naturalistic approach even extends to the landscaping, where he's used plant-covered mounds to create different levels. At the back, a bull sculpture overlooks the garden from a slight height, giving great focus to the space. And even the seating area to catch the morning sun is surrounded by plants.
It's just for that one moment of the day. It's really a beautiful place to sit.
So it's a great vantage point looking across the garden and through the planting from here as well.
It gives a completely different perspective on it, doesn't it? And then it uses the maximum length that you can possibly have in the garden, of course. And I also like the feeling of being in the planting.
This garden doesn't have a designer look, and that's the whole point. All these plants create a wonderful, lush, dynamic, constantly changing space.
It is something that I've developed over 25 years, and so it's quite an old garden. And actually one of the best moments for me was when that mound, which was meant to be stripes, horizontal bands of ceanothus and cistus, failed totally when all the cistus decided somehow to migrate to the top of the mound.
Plants do what they want, and
yes.
they live in their own way.
And that's what's so exciting to me, and I think that was what really suddenly sort of catapulted me into being a plantsman. Yeah. Was the realisation that you are working with a living medium that's not completely controllable and that does wonderful things.
Now I want to build up the planting in this area, which is actually the boggiest piece of the garden, because this is where the pond overflows when we fill it. It's also the shadiest bit. So ideal for primulas, and I love them. You know, I love primulas of all kinds, and I haven't got enough. So the idea is that we use the pond as an excuse to get more primulas.
And get more, I second that definitely. And for gardeners, primulas are really divided into 3 groups. There are primroses and polyanthus, and that includes our native primrose, the Primula vulgaris, and also cowslips. Then there are the auriculas, very beautiful, very much favoured by the Victorians, and some people still display them in an auricular theatre. And there are also the Asiatic primroses, and that includes the candelabra primulas.
Which is what I'm planting here. This is Primula florindi, and it comes from the Himalayas, and it's sometimes called the Tibetan cowslip. Really big, tall, cowslip yellow plants in July and August should look really dramatic and pick up the yellows. Seeds itself well, so should spread pretty well. Can be invasive, I suppose, if such a beautiful thing could be regarded as invasive. But that's a problem I'll be delighted to deal with in a few years' time.
Exactly, I'd like that problem. This is a lovely one. This is actually very early in flower. It's the first one into flower. In fact, you can see just a few little buds just coming through there. It's called Postford White. It's Japonica, and I think it's just, it has that lovely sort of simplicity, the white flowers with a golden centre. It's that lovely innocence that you get with a primula.
This third variety I've got is, I always can never pronounce this, say it again. Pulverulenta. You may laugh.
It is the mealy primula.
Easy
way.
Pink candelabra primula. Never grown it before, seen it often in pictures, seen it in gardens. I want it in my garden, and now I've got it, even though I can't pronounce its name. Now, if you want to learn about plants and be inspired by them, the thing to do is go and see them. Go and see a collection, go and see them growing at their best. And we went to Harlow Carr to see the collection of primulas.
Wow, tends to be the main reaction. It's just such a wide range of colours. Over the years, it's just been a collection of the seed being scattered and dispersed naturally, which has created the Harlow Carr hybrids. The reason they're really pale this year is that we've had a dry spring. If it had been a wet spring, the colours would be a lot more full-on, very deep crimson and scarlet colours. To grow primulas, you're going to need damp conditions. They enjoy partial shade to full sun, slightly acidic soils, full of nutrients and goodness. We've just top-dressed this bed with our own compost. They're loving it, full flourish. With primulas, you can sow the seed in the autumn or in the spring, but what I like to do is sow them in the spring and bring them on for the following year. That way we can plant out and get an instant impact, but also we can actually go through the plants and see what colour they're going to flower and we can select out a variety of different colours. Water the compost first, then scatter with vermiculite using a sieve. Then disperse the seed using a piece of paper over the top of the vermiculite. Once you've done this, then recover with vermiculite and put in a cold frame. Germination time should be 2 to 3 weeks. Once you've established a display like we have at Harlow-Carr, to keep it maintained and going, you're going to really need to let the plants and the primulas do what they do best, and that's to cross-pollinate and just let them do the work. And it, all being well, it should look as fantastic as what it does at Harlow-Carr.
I've got a few more.
Lovely. Can never have too many, I say.
I know. And the great thing about these, of course, is that they are very easy to divide. You know, once they get going, they just rip apart, and that works well. But here are some jobs you can do this weekend. Last year, my squashes and pumpkins were a disaster, and that was because it was so cold. So hopefully this year it'll be warmer and they'll thrive. But in any event, now is the time to plant them. I like to put 2 seeds in a small pot, knowing that I'm going to weed out the lesser of the 2. Cover them with compost and then put them somewhere warm to germinate. A windowsill will do, but a heated mat, if you've got one, is ideal. As soon as your peas appear above the ground, it's important to give them something to climb onto. You need a large surface area. So traditionally, bean sticks were used, and I've kept the brash from the coppice, which I pruned earlier this year. But any kind of netting will do the job just as well. At this time of year, clematis are putting on masses of new growth. But at this stage, it's not self-supporting. So it's important to go around your clematis and sort them out, tie them up, untangle them, and get them into a good position so that the later growth, which is self-supporting, will look at its best. I think one of the things I find actually reassuring rather than scary is that this is very much work in progress.
Yes.
It may not come right. You know, most things don't. But they are, the great thing about gardening is they're changeable and adaptable.
Exactly.
And,
you dig them up and move them on somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, Monty, this has made me want my pond absolutely now.
You shall have your pond. You shall go to the ball.
I want it right now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.